The starship Horizon's Edge dropped out of faster-than-light travel with a gentle shudder that ran through its metal bones. Captain Kang Tae-ho stood at the bridge window, his hands clasped behind his back, watching as the planet Nara Prime grew larger before him. It was a beautiful world, covered in deep purple oceans and forests that glowed with soft blue light. 3 silver moons hung in the sky like jewels. "We have arrived, Captain," said Lieutenant Wu Jin from his station. He was a tall man with kind eyes and a calm voice that never seemed to change. "Even in the worst situations, the Valorian command is hailing us." Tae-ho nodded slowly. This was the moment humanity had been waiting for. Earth had only discovered faster-than-light travel 5 years ago, and since then, they had learned that the galaxy was full of alien species. Most of them looked at humans the way humans might look at ants. Small, weak, unimportant. The Valorians were one of the oldest and most powerful civilizations in this part of the galaxy. They lived for hundreds of years. Their technology was far beyond anything Earth could dream of. Their warriors were legendary. Their empire stretched across dozens of star systems, and their High Matriarch ruled with absolute authority. And now, a single human ship was approaching their homeworld to ask for friendship. "Open the channel," Tae-ho said. The main screen flickered to life, showing a Valorian officer. The aliens looked almost human, but their skin had a faint silver shine, and their eyes were larger, with pupils that shifted between purple and gold. The officer looked at Tae-ho the way someone might look at a stray animal that had wandered into their home. "Human vessel," the officer said, his voice cold. "You have been granted permission to land at the diplomatic platform. You will follow our escort ships exactly. Any deviation will be considered an act of war." Tae-ho kept his face calm and polite. "Understood. We are grateful for the opportunity to meet with the High Matriarch." The officer made a sound that might have been a laugh. "The Matriarch is very busy. She has made time for this meeting as a curiosity. Nothing more. Do not expect too much, human." The screen went dark. Wu Jin let out a long breath. "Friendly people, they don't know us yet," Tae-ho replied. "We're just going to have to show them who we are." The Horizon's Edge followed the escort ships down through the atmosphere of Nara Prime. The diplomatic platform was a massive floating structure that hovered above the capital city. The city below stretched for hundreds of miles in every direction, filled with towers that reached toward the clouds and bridges of light that connected them. When the ship landed, Tae-ho put on his formal uniform. It was simple compared to what the Valorians wore. Just a dark blue jacket with silver buttons and the symbol of Earth on his chest. But he wore it with pride. A small team accompanied him. Wu Jin, 2 security officers, and a diplomatic advisor. They walked down the ramp and onto the platform, where a group of Valorian officials waited for them. The air smelled strange, like flowers and metal mixed together. The gravity was slightly stronger than Earth, making each step feel heavy. Tae-ho ignored the discomfort and walked forward with his head held high. The Valorians led them through long hallways decorated with artwork that showed their history. Battles won. Enemies defeated. Great heroes standing tall over fallen foes. Everything about this place was designed to make visitors feel small and weak. Finally, they reached the Grand Hall. It was the largest room Tae-ho had ever seen. The ceiling was so high it disappeared into shadows. Thousands of Valorians filled the hall, standing in perfect rows according to their rank and house. At the far end, on a throne made of something that looked like frozen starlight, sat High Matriarch Sura. She was tall, even for a Valorian. Her silver hair fell past her shoulders, and her eyes were the color of dark storms. She wore armor that looked both ancient and incredibly advanced, covered in symbols that glowed with soft light. Everything about her radiated power and authority. Beside the throne stood a younger Valorian woman. She had the same silver hair as the matriarch, but her eyes were softer, more curious. Princess Yuna watched the humans enter with an expression that was not contempt, but genuine interest. Tae-ho walked the long path to the throne, feeling the eyes of thousands upon him. When he reached the proper distance, he stopped and bowed his head in respect. "High Matriarch Sura," he said, his voice carrying through the silent hall. I am Captain Kang Tae-ho of the Earth vessel Horizon's Edge. I bring greetings from the people of Earth, and our hope for friendship between our peoples." Sura studied him for a long moment. Her expression revealed nothing. "Humanity," she said finally. Her voice was like ice wrapped in silk. "A young species. You have only just learned to walk among the stars, and already you come to the doors of the Valorian Dominion asking for friendship." She tilted her head slightly. "Tell me, Captain, what does Earth have to offer us? Your technology is primitive. Your lifespans are short. Your bodies are fragile. What value do humans bring to this galaxy?" Tae-ho had expected this question. He had prepared many answers, full of diplomatic words about trade and cultural exchange. But standing here, in front of this ancient queen, those words felt empty, so he spoke from his heart instead. "We bring ourselves," he said simply. "We are young. Yes, we are still learning. But we are curious. We are determined. And we never give up. No matter how impossible things seem. That is what humans bring to the galaxy." A few Valorians laughed quietly. General Dayrock, who stood near the throne in his military armor, shook his head with obvious disgust. But Princess Yuna did not laugh. She leaned forward slightly, her eyes fixed on Tae-ho, with something that looked like fascination. And High Matriarch Sura simply stared at him, her expression unreadable. Before she could respond, a loud alarm suddenly echoed through the grand hall. Red lights began flashing along the walls. Every Valorian in the room went still. General Dayrock touched a device on his wrist, and his face went pale. He turned to the matriarch and spoke in a voice that shook slightly. "My matriarch, unknown warships have entered our space, many of them. They are heading directly for Nara Prime." The hall erupted into controlled chaos. Orders were shouted. Warriors rushed to their stations. The ceremony was forgotten in an instant. Tae-ho looked at Woo-jin, and they shared a single thought. Their first diplomatic mission had just become something much more dangerous. Through the crowd, Tae-ho caught one last glimpse of Princess Yuna. She was looking back at him, her eyes filled with worry, and then she was gone, swept away by her guards. The arrival was over. The real test was about to begin. The command center of Nara Prime was a storm of activity. Holographic displays filled the air, showing the positions of hundreds of ships. Valorian officers shouted orders and coordinates. In the middle of it all stood General Dayrock, his face hard as stone as he studied the enemy fleet. Tae-ho and his small team had been pushed to the side of the room, largely forgotten in the chaos. But Tae-ho watched everything carefully, learning what he could about the threat that had arrived. "The Krath Collective," Woo-jin said quietly, reading from a data screen he had been given. "A confederation of pirates and raiders. They attack weaker civilizations, steal their resources, and enslave their people. They've been hitting Valorian outer colonies for months." Tae-ho frowned. "And now they're attacking the homeworld itself. That's bold." "Or desperate," Woo-jin replied. "Or maybe they know something we don't." On the main display, Tae-ho could see the Krath fleet. There were at least 40 warships, dark and ugly things covered in weapons. They moved in loose formations, circling like predators waiting for the right moment to strike. The Valorian fleet moved to intercept them. Their ships were beautiful, sleek silver vessels that moved with perfect coordination. General Dayrock commanded them with confidence, arranging them into precise battle formations that had won Valorian wars for thousands of years. Tae-ho watched the formations and felt a cold worry in his stomach. The Valorians were fighting with honor and tradition. They announced their attacks. They followed ancient rules of engagement. They expected the enemy to do the same. But the Krath were pirates. They had no honor. They had no rules. "General," Tae-ho called out, stepping forward. "Request permission to assist in the defense." Dayrock turned to look at him. The general's eyes were full of contempt. "Assist? With what? Your single, primitive ship?" He laughed coldly. "Stay out of the way, human. Watch and learn how real warriors fight." Quote, "With respect, General, the Krath aren't fighting like warriors. They're fighting like... I said stay out of the way. Dayrock turned his back on Taeho. This is not your concern. Taeho clenched his fists but said nothing more. He returned to Wu Jin's side, his eyes never leaving the tactical display. The battle began. The Valorian fleet engaged the Krath with precision and power. Their weapons were devastating, cutting through enemy ships with ease. For a few minutes, it seemed like the battle would be over quickly, but then the Krath did something unexpected. Instead of meeting the Valorians head-on, they scattered. Their ships broke formation and spread out in every direction, attacking from multiple angles at once. Some dove toward the planet's surface. Others circled around to hit the Valorian fleet from behind. The perfect Valorian formations began to fall apart. They had trained to fight enemies who followed rules. The Krath followed no rules at all. They're targeting the civilian sectors, an officer reported, panic in his voice. Raiders are landing in the outer cities. The medical convoy is under attack, another voice shouted. The Krath have surrounded them. Taeho's attention snapped to a smaller display, showing a group of ships near the edge of the battle. A Valorian medical frigate, slow and poorly armed, was trying to escape from 4 Krath raiders. The frigate was carrying refugees from the attacked cities, hundreds of innocent people fleeing the violence. And among the refugees, according to the ship's manifest, was Princess Yuna. General, Taeho said urgently. The medical frigate needs support. The princess is on board. Dayrock looked at the display, and for a moment, fear crossed his face, but he quickly controlled it. I cannot spare any ships. We must hold the main line, or the entire defense will collapse. Then let me go. Let the Horizon's Edge help them. Your ship is not part of this battle. You have no authority here. People are going to die. Taeho stepped closer, his voice hard. Your princess is going to die. I'm not asking for authority. I'm asking for permission to save lives. The 2 men stared at each other. Around them, the sounds of battle filled the air. Explosions. Alarms. Screaming. Finally, Dayrock looked away. Do what you want, human. But if you interfere with our operations, I will destroy your ship myself. Taeho was already running toward the door. Wu Jin, with me. Everyone else, back to the ship. Now, they ran through the halls of the diplomatic platform, pushing past Valorian soldiers and frightened civilians. The Horizon's Edge was still on the landing pad. Its engines cold. Taeho's crew was small, just 15 people in total, but they were some of the best Earth had to offer. Get us in the air, Taeho ordered as he reached the bridge. Maximum speed toward the medical frigate. The engines roared to life, and the Horizon's Edge lifted off the platform. Below them, the beautiful city was burning in places, smoke rising from the areas where Krath raiders had landed. Captain, Wu Jin said, studying his screens. The medical frigate is surrounded. 4 Krath raiders, all with weapons locked on. They're demanding surrender. Time until we reach them? 3 minutes at full speed. Taeho gripped the arms of his command chair. 3 minutes was a long time in a battle. A lot of people could die in 3 minutes. Tell the frigate to hold on. Help is coming. The Horizon's Edge tore through the sky, pushing its engines harder than they were designed to go. Warning lights flashed across the bridge as the ship shook and groaned under the stress. On the tactical display, Taeho could see the 4 Krath raiders circling the medical frigate like sharks around wounded prey. One of them had already attached itself to the frigate's hull. They were preparing to board. They're going to take the refugees, Wu Jin said quietly. Slaves for their markets. Taeho's jaw tightened. Not today. Captain, we're 1 ship against 4. Our weapons are weaker than theirs. Our shields are basic. If we engage directly, then we won't engage directly. Taeho leaned forward, his eyes calculating. Load all missiles, target their engines, and prepare for close quarters maneuvering. Wu Jin stared at him. Close quarters? Sir, at that range, 1 hit could destroy us. Then we better not get hit. Taeho smiled, but there was no humor in it, Only determination. Trust me, Wu Jin. Humans didn't survive this long by fighting fair. The horizon's edge burst out of the clouds and into the battle zone. The four Krath raiders turned their attention to this new threat. Surprised by its sudden appearance, Taeho opened a channel to the enemy ships. His voice was calm and cold. "This is Captain Kang Taeho of Earth. Release the medical frigate and withdraw, or we will destroy you." There was a moment of silence. Then the Krath responded with laughter and weapons fire. The battle for the refugees had begun, and Taeho was going to show the galaxy what humans were capable of. The Krath weapons fire filled the space around the horizon's edge with deadly light. Any other captain would have pulled back, retreated to safety, and called for reinforcements. But Taeho was not any other captain. "Hard to port, then roll starboard," he commanded. "Give me a clear shot at the lead raider's engines." The horizon's edge moved in ways that seemed impossible. It twisted and spun through the enemy fire, missing death by meters. Taeho's pilot was sweating, her hands flying across the controls, trusting her captain's instincts completely. The Krath had never seen anything like this. Their targeting systems were designed to track ships that moved in predictable patterns. The human vessel seemed to have no pattern at all. It was chaos given form. "Missiles away," Wu Jin announced. 4 missiles streaked toward the lead Krath raider. 3 were shot down by defensive fire. But the 4th slipped through and struck the enemy's engine section. The raider shuddered and began drifting, its power systems damaged. "1 down, 3 to go," Taeho said. "Take us between the frigate and the closest raider." "Full speed." "Sir, that's a collision course." "I know." The horizon's edge accelerated directly toward the second Krath raider. The enemy ship opened fire with everything it had. But the human vessel was too fast, too erratic. At the last possible second, Taeho's pilot pulled up, and the horizon's edge scraped along the top of the raider's hull, tearing off weapon mounts and sensor arrays. The Krath ship spun out of control, its crew thrown into chaos, but the maneuver had cost them. Warning alarms screamed across the bridge. The horizon's edge had taken damage to its lower hull. Smoke filled the corridors. 2 crew members were injured. "Shields at 40%, Wu Jin reported. "Hull breach in Section 7. "We can't take many more hits like that." Taeho nodded grimly. 2 raiders remained, and one of them was still attached to the medical frigate, boarding it through a forced airlock. The refugees inside were running out of time. "Get us alongside the frigate," Taeho said. "I'm going over there." "Captain, you can't. Someone has to stop that boarding party. Our ship needs to deal with the last raider." "That leaves me." Taeho stood and grabbed a rifle from the weapons locker. "You have command, Wu Jin. Keep the ship alive until I get back." Wu Jin wanted to argue. He wanted to tell his captain that this was suicide, that one man could not stop a Krath boarding party. But he had served with Taeho for 5 years. He knew that look in his captain's eyes. "Yes, sir," he said quietly. "Come back alive." Taeho smiled. "I plan to." The horizon's edge pulled alongside the medical frigate, matching its damaged hull to the emergency airlock. Taeho cycled through alone, leaving his ship behind. The airlock opened, and he stepped into darkness and screaming. The inside of the medical frigate was chaos. Emergency lights flashed red. Smoke and the smell of burning filled the air. Refugees were running through the corridors, trying to escape the Krath warriors who had invaded their ship. Taeho raised his rifle and moved forward. The first Krath warrior never saw him coming. Taeho put 2 rounds into its chest before it could react. The second turned at the sound, reaching for its weapon. Taeho was faster. 3 more shots, and the alien fell. He pushed deeper into the ship, following the sounds of combat. The Krath were 8 feet tall, covered in thick gray skin and natural armor. They were stronger than any human. In a fair fight, 1 Krath could kill 10 men. But Taeho was not interested in fair fights. He used the narrow corridors against them. The Krath were too large to move quickly in the tight spaces. Taeho ducked under their attacks, slipped behind them, and struck at weak points. He fought dirty. He fought smart. He fought like a human. His rifle ran dry after killing 4 more enemies. He dropped it and pulled out his combat knife. A Krath warrior charged at him, swinging a massive blade. Taeho dove under the swing, rolled past the alien, and drove his knife into the back of its knee. The warrior fell. Taeho climbed onto its back and finished it. He was bleeding now. A cut on his forehead dripped blood into his eyes. His ribs ached from a blow he had not been able to avoid completely. But he kept moving. The refugee bay was at the center of the ship. When Taeho reached it, he found the doors sealed from the inside. Outside the doors, 5 Krath warriors were trying to cut through with plasma torches. Inside those doors were hundreds of innocent people, including Princess Yuna. Taeho took a breath. 5 against 1. His knife against their weapons. The smart thing would be to wait for backup, but there was no backup coming. And every second he waited, those doors got weaker. He stepped out of the shadows. "Hey," he called out. The Krath turned. For a moment, they just stared at this small, bloody human standing in front of them with nothing but a knife. Then Taeho attacked. The fight was brutal. Taeho used everything around him as a weapon. He threw objects into their faces. He used one Krath's body as a shield against another's attack. He was cut, beaten, thrown against walls, but every time he fell, he got back up. One by one, the Krath fell. The last one, the leader, grabbed Taeho by the throat and lifted him off the ground. It squeezed, crushing his windpipe. Taeho's vision started to go dark. With the last of his strength, he drove his knife into the Krath's eye. The alien screamed and dropped him. Taeho hit the ground hard, gasping for air. He forced himself to his knees, then to his feet. The Krath leader stumbled backward, clawing at its ruined eye. Taeho picked up a fallen plasma rifle and fired. Silence. He stood alone in the corridor, surrounded by fallen enemies. His body was broken. His uniform was soaked in blood, both his own and others. But he was alive. The doors to the refugee bay opened slowly. Princess Yuna stood in the doorway, her eyes wide with shock. Behind her, hundreds of refugees stared at the human who had saved them. Yuna looked at the bodies on the ground. She looked at Taeho, barely able to stand, still holding his knife in one hand and the rifle in the other. She had seen Valorian warriors fight. She had watched holos of legendary battles. She had never seen anything like this. "You came for us," she whispered. Taeho tried to smile, but his face hurt too much. "I said I would." Outside, through the ship's damaged windows, they could see the battle ending. The remaining Krath raiders were retreating. Valorian reinforcements had finally arrived. The horizon's edge, battered but still flying, was escorting them in. Taeho's legs gave out. He collapsed against the wall, sliding down to the floor. Yuna rushed to his side, calling for medical help. "Stay awake," she said, pressing her hands against his worst wounds. "Help is coming. Stay with me." Taeho looked up at her. Even through the pain, he noticed how beautiful she was, how worried she looked, how her hands, a princess's hands, were covered in his blood because she was trying to save him. "I'm not going anywhere," he managed to say. Then everything went dark. When the Valorian medical teams arrived, they found Princess Yuna still holding the unconscious human captain, refusing to let anyone move him until she was certain he would receive the best care possible. The Krath threat was defeated, but something else had just begun. Taeho woke up slowly, like swimming up from deep water. The first thing he noticed was the softness beneath him. The bed was unlike anything on his ship, made of materials that seemed to adjust to his body perfectly. The second thing he noticed was that he was not in pain. He looked down at himself. His wounds were gone. Not just bandaged or stitched, but completely healed. Only faint silver lines remained where the deepest cuts had been, like memories written on his skin. Valorian medical technology. The voice came from beside his bed. Princess Yuna sat in a chair near the window, watching him. Soft purple light from Nara Prime's moons fell across her face. She looked tired, as if she had not slept in a long time. "We can heal almost any injury," she continued. "Broken bones, damaged organs, even wounds that would kill most species. You were close to death when they brought you here. Another hour, and even our technology might not have been enough. Taeho sat up slowly, testing his body. Everything worked. Everything felt strong. It was strange, and slightly unsettling. How long was I unconscious? 3 days. Yuna's eyes never left his face. I have been here the whole time. I wanted to make sure you woke up. You didn't have to do that. I'm sure you have more important things to do. Yuna shook her head. You saved my life. You saved the lives of 300 refugees. There is nothing more important than thanking you for that. Taeho looked around the room. It was clearly a place for important guests, decorated with art and furnished with luxury. Through the window, he could see the capital city spread out below, still showing signs of damage from the attack. The battle, he said. How did it end? The Krath retreated. They lost too many ships and too many warriors. We won. Yuna paused. But it was not a clean victory. Many Valorians died. Several ships were destroyed, and our military commanders are arguing about what went wrong. They were fighting an enemy who doesn't follow rules. You can't use traditional tactics against an opponent who has no traditions. That is what General Dayrock is learning, though he does not want to admit it. A small smile crossed Yuna's face. He is also learning that a single human ship did what his entire fleet could not. He is not happy about that. Before Taeho could respond, the door to the room opened. High Matriarch Su-Ra entered, followed by 2 guards, who remained at the doorway. She moved with the same cold authority Taeho remembered from their first meeting, but there was something different in her eyes now. Something that might have been curiosity. Yuna stood immediately and bowed her head. Mother. Su-Ra acknowledged her daughter with a slight nod, then turned her full attention to Taeho. She walked to the side of his bed and looked down at him with an expression that was impossible to read. Captain Kang Taeho, she said. The human who charges alone into battle. The man who fights Krath warriors with a knife. The fool who risks everything for people he does not know. Taeho met her gaze steadily. Matriarch Su-Ra, my advisors do not know what to make of you. Some say you are a hero who deserves our highest honors. Others say you are a reckless danger who violated our military protocols and should be sent back to Earth immediately. She tilted her head slightly. Whoa, I have read the reports. I have watched the recordings from the medical frigate. I have heard testimony from the refugees you saved. And still, I do not understand you. What don't you understand? Why? The word came out sharp and cold. You were guests on our world. You came here to negotiate trade agreements and cultural exchanges. There was no reason for you to risk your life. No obligation, no duty. Your species has no alliance with ours, no treaty that required you to fight. And yet you flew your ship into battle. You boarded an enemy vessel alone. You killed 8 Krath warriors with your bare hands and a knife. Why? Taeho was quiet for a moment, thinking about how to answer. He could give her political words about building trust between their peoples. He could talk about the strategic value of saving the princess. He could frame it as a calculated decision, but that would be a lie. Because they needed help, he said simply. Because innocent people were going to die if someone didn't do something. Because I could help. So I did. Su-Ra stared at him. In Valorian culture, warriors fought for honor. They fought to bring glory to their house and name. They fought because duty demanded it. The idea of fighting simply because someone needed help, with no expectation of reward or recognition, was difficult for her to process. You nearly died, she said. Yes. You could have stayed safely on your ship. No one would have blamed you. I would have blamed me. The matriarch was silent for a long time. Finally, she spoke again, her voice softer than before. My daughter tells me you are different from other humans she has read about. She says there is something in you that she has never seen before. I am beginning to understand what she means. Yuna's cheeks turned slightly purple. The Valorian version of a blush. She did not look at Taeho. Su-Ra continued. I have ruled the Valorian dominion for 300 years. I have met thousands of leaders, warriors, and diplomats from hundreds of species. I know ambition when I see it. I know greed, and fear, and the desire for power. She paused. I do not see any of those things in you. I see something else, something I do not have a word for. On Earth, we call it compassion, Teho said, or maybe just stubbornness. The corner of Sura's mouth twitched. It might have been the beginning of a smile. Perhaps your species is not as simple as I thought. Perhaps there is value in humans that we have not yet learned to see. She turned to leave, then stopped at the doorway. Rest and recover. Captain, you and I will speak again soon. There is much I wish to understand about your people. After she left, Yuna let out a breath she had been holding. That was better than I expected. She doesn't trust me, Teho said. No. But she is interested in you. For my mother, that is a very big step. Yuna sat back down in her chair. She is not used to surprises. You have surprised her very much. What about you? Am I what you expected humans to be? Yuna considered the question carefully. I have studied humans for years. Your history, your culture, your art, and music. I thought I understood your species. She shook her head slowly. I was wrong. Reading about humans is not the same as knowing one. You are complicated. Is that good or bad? I do not know yet. She smiled, and there was warmth in it. But I am looking forward to finding out. Outside the window, the damaged city was beginning to rebuild, but everyone knew this was only a temporary peace. The Krath would return, and next time, they would bring an even larger force. The battle for Nara Prime was not over. It had only just begun. The days that followed were strange and unexpected for Teho. He had come to Nara Prime as a diplomat, expecting formal meetings and careful negotiations. Instead, he found himself walking through ancient gardens with a princess, discussing everything from philosophy to food. Yuna visited him every day as he recovered. At first, the conversations were formal and polite. She asked about Earth. He asked about Valorian history. They spoke like representatives of their peoples, careful and diplomatic, but slowly, the walls between them began to fall. Tell me about human families, Yuna said one afternoon. They were sitting in a garden filled with plants that glowed softly in the daylight. Strange insects with wings like crystal flew between the flowers. On Valoria, children are raised by their house, trained from birth to serve their role in society. Is it different for humans? Teho thought about his own childhood. Humans are raised by their parents. Usually. My mother and father both worked, but they always made time for me. My mother taught me to cook. My father taught me to fix things that were broken. He smiled at the memory. We didn't have much money, but we were happy. And now, do you still see them? My father died when I was 16. An accident at the factory where he worked. My mother raised me alone after that. She's still on Earth. I send her messages whenever I can. Yuna was quiet for a moment. I am sorry about your father. It was a long time ago, but I still think about him every day. Teho looked up at the purple sky. That's why I fight the way I do. My father always said that the measure of a person is not what they do when things are easy. It's what they do when things are hard. He sounds like he was a wise man. He was just a factory worker. But he was the best person I ever knew. Yuna reached out and touched Teho's hand. It was a small gesture, but it meant more than either of them could say. Their conversations continued over the following days. Teho told her about Earth's history, the wars and the suffering, but also the art and the music and the endless human ability to hope. He told her about human love, how messy and complicated and beautiful it was. Yuna shared her own secrets. She talked about the loneliness of being a princess, how everyone saw her title before they saw her. She talked about her mother's expectations, the weight of being heir to an empire she had never asked to rule. She talked about her dreams, the things she wanted to see and do if she were ever free. For the first time in both their lives, they had found someone who truly listened. But the peace could not last. One evening, Wu Jin came to Taeho with a serious expression. "Captain, you need to see this." The intelligence reports were frightening. The Krath were not retreating. They were regrouping. They had formed alliances with two other pirate factions, the Skoran and the Voidwalkers. Together, they were building an armada larger than anything the galaxy had seen in centuries. Their target was Nara Prime. "They want revenge," Wu Jin said. The Krath lost face when they were driven back. Their leader, Warlord Grun, cannot allow that insult to stand. He's sworn to burn this world to ash. Taeho studied the numbers. The enemy fleet would have more than 200 warships. The Valorians had less than 50 capable of combat. Even with their superior technology, it would be a slaughter. "When?" Taeho asked. "Our best estimate is 10 days, maybe less." 10 days. Not enough time to call for reinforcements from the Valorian outer colonies. Not enough time to build new ships or train new warriors. They would have to fight with what they had. Taeho found General Dayrock in the military command center, studying the same reports. The general looked older than he had just a week ago. The coming battle weighed on him heavily. "You've seen the numbers," Dayrock said without looking up. "Yes. Then you know we cannot win." "Not conventionally." The general turned to face Taeho. There was no contempt in his eyes now. Only respect for a fellow warrior. "The matriarch has asked for your advice. She believes your unconventional approach might offer solutions we have not considered." Taeho was surprised. "She wants my help? She wants to save her people. And she has watched what you can do." Dayrock sighed. "I have spent my entire life studying the art of war. I have won battles that seemed impossible, but I was trained to fight enemies who think like I do. The Krath do not think like me. You do not think like me." He met Taeho's eyes. "Perhaps that is what we need." Over the next several days, Taeho worked closely with the Valorian military. He shared human tactics, strategies that had been developed over thousands of years of war on Earth. He taught them about deception, about misdirection, about attacking where the enemy least expected. Some of the older officers resisted. These methods felt dishonorable to them, like cheating. But Dayrock supported Taeho. And slowly, the plans began to take shape. Through it all, Yuna was by his side. She helped translate ideas between human and Valorian thinking. She calmed tempers when disagreements grew heated. She believed in Taeho when others doubted him. Late one night, they sat together on a balcony overlooking the city. The 3 moons hung low in the sky, casting silver light over everything. "I'm scared," Yuna admitted quietly. "I have never been in a real battle before. I have trained, of course. Every Valorian trains. But this is different. This is real." Taeho nodded. "Being scared is normal. Anyone who says they're not afraid before a battle is either lying or crazy." "Are you afraid?" "Terrified," he said honestly. "But fear isn't the enemy. Fear keeps you sharp, keeps you alive. The trick is not to let it control you." Yuna leaned against him, and he put his arm around her shoulders. It felt natural, like something they had always done. "Whatever happens," she said, "I'm glad I met you. I'm glad I got to know what humans are really like. We're not all like me. Some of us are worse, some are better. I think you are exactly who you are meant to be." She looked up at him. "Thank you, Taeho. For everything." He wanted to tell her how he felt. He wanted to say that in the short time they had known each other, she had become more important to him than he could explain. But the words wouldn't come, so instead, he just held her, and they watched the moons set together. Somewhere out in the darkness of space, the enemy fleet was gathering. In 10 days, maybe less, they would arrive. And everything would change. But for this one moment, there was peace, and hope, and something that felt very much like love. The enemy came on the 8th day. 217 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Nara Prime system. They moved together like a swarm of hungry insects, blocking out the stars with their mass. At the center of the formation flew the Krath flagship, the Devourer, a massive vessel covered in weapons and the bones of conquered enemies. On its bridge stood Warlord Grun, a giant even among his kind. His gray skin was covered in scars from 1,000 battles. His eyes burned with hatred and the desire for revenge. "Burn them all," he commanded. "Leave nothing alive." The Valorian fleet waited in orbit around their homeworld. 43 ships, arranged not in their traditional formations, but in the scattered pattern Taeho had suggested. They looked weak, disorganized, like they were already defeated. This was exactly what they wanted the enemy to think. Taeho stood on the bridge of the horizon's edge, watching the enemy approach. His ship had been repaired and upgraded with Valorian technology. It was still smaller than the Krath Raiders, but it was faster and tougher than before. "All ships report ready," Wu Jin said. General Dayrock's voice came over the communication channel. "Human, I hope your plan works." "So do I," Taeho replied. "Remember, don't engage until they're in the trap zone." The Krath fleet charged forward, eager for blood. They expected the Valorians to meet them in honorable combat, to fight and die with dignity. They were wrong. As the enemy crossed into the trap zone, Taeho gave the signal. Dozens of hidden mines exploded throughout the Krath formation. These were not ordinary mines but specially designed devices that disrupted engine systems rather than destroyed ships. 20 enemy vessels suddenly lost power and began drifting out of control. The Krath fleet scattered in confusion, breaking their formation. This was the moment. "All ships, attack," Dayrock commanded. The Valorian fleet surged forward, not as a unified wall, but as independent strike teams. Each group had a specific target, a specific job. They hit the disorganized enemy from multiple directions at once, then retreated before the Krath could respond. Hit and run, strike and fade. Human tactics that felt like cheating to the Valorians, but worked against an enemy who relied on brute force. The Horizon's Edge led the most dangerous team. Their target was the Devourer itself. "Captain, the flagship is adjusting course," Wu Jin reported. "They're trying to regroup their fleet. Then we need to keep them distracted. All weapons, fire at will." The small human ship danced between enemy vessels, firing missiles and energy weapons. It drew attention away from the main battle, forcing Warlord Grun to focus on this annoying fly instead of commanding his fleet. But the Krath were many, and they were not stupid. Slowly, they began to adapt. Their losses were heavy, but they still outnumbered the Valorians 3-1. Ships on both sides were dying. The space around Nara Prime became a graveyard of burning metal. "We're losing too many ships," Dayrock's voice came through, strained with frustration. "We cannot maintain this pace." Taeho looked at the tactical display. The general was right. The plan was working, but not fast enough. At this rate, the Valorian fleet would be destroyed before they could finish the enemy. There was only one option left. "General, I'm going to take out the flagship. When Grun dies, the alliance will fall apart. That's suicide. The Devourer has more firepower than half our fleet. I'm not going to shoot it. I'm going to board it." Silence on the channel. Then Yuna's voice, from the command center on the planet's surface where she was helping coordinate the defense. "Taeho, no. Please, it's the only way. If I can kill Grun, the Krath will lose their leader. The other pirate factions will retreat. This ends." He paused. "Trust me." The Horizon's Edge accelerated toward the Devourer, weaving through enemy fire. The ship took hit after hit, its shields failing, its hull cracking. Warning alarms screamed across the bridge. "Captain, we're not going to survive another pass," Wu Jin shouted over the noise. "We don't need another pass." Taeho aimed his ship directly at the Devourer's hangar bay. "All hands, brace for impact." The Horizon's Edge crashed into the enemy flagship, tearing through the hangar doors and skidding to a stop amid burning wreckage. The ship was destroyed, but the crew was alive. Taeho grabbed his weapons and led his people into the enemy vessel. "Find cover and hold this position," he ordered. "I'm going after Grun." "Sir, let me come with you," Wu Jin said. "I need you here to coordinate with the fleet." If I don't come back, get our people home. Taeho clasped his friend's shoulder. It's been an honor, Jin. Before Wu Jin could respond, Taeho was gone, running into the darkness of the enemy ship. The Devourer was a maze of corridors and chambers, filled with Krath warriors rushing to respond to the boarding. Taeho moved like a ghost, avoiding fights when he could, ending them quickly when he couldn't. He was outnumbered by thousands, but the Krath were focused on the battle outside. They never expected a single human to be hunting their leader. He found Grun on the main bridge, standing before a massive window, watching his fleet struggle against the Valorian resistance. Warlord, Taeho called out. Grun turned. He was huge, almost 3 meters tall, his body a mountain of muscle and armor. In his hand, he held a blade as long as Taeho was tall. A human, Grun laughed. You are the one who caused so much trouble. The little creature who thinks it can fight. I'm the one who's going to kill you. Grun's laughter stopped. His eyes narrowed. Bold words from a dead thing. The warlord attacked with terrifying speed. His blade cut through the air where Taeho had been standing a moment before. Taeho rolled away, firing his rifle. The shots bounced off Grun's natural armor. The fight was not fair. Grun was stronger, faster, and better armed. Taeho was cut across the chest. He was thrown against walls. He was beaten again and again, but he did not stop. Every time he fell, he got back up. Every time Grun thought he had won, the human attacked again. It was not skill that kept Taeho fighting. It was something else. Something the Krath warlord had never faced before. Pure, stubborn, human refusal to die. Grun grew frustrated. He swung his blade in a massive arc, meant to cut Taeho in half. Taeho ducked under the swing and drove forward. Inside the warlord's guard, he plunged his combat knife into the gap between Grun's armor plates, into the soft flesh of the alien's throat. Grun staggered back, clutching his wound. Blood poured between his fingers. He stared at Taeho with disbelief. How? He gasped. How can something so small? Taeho picked up Grun's fallen blade. It was heavy, almost too heavy to lift. But he managed. Humans don't give up, he said. Ever. He swung the blade with all his remaining strength. The warlord fell. Outside, the Krath fleet began to fall apart. Without their leader, the alliance crumbled. The Skoran and Voidwalkers retreated first. Wanting no part of a battle they could no longer win. The remaining Krath ships, confused and leaderless, were easy targets for the Valorian fleet. In less than an hour, it was over. Nara Prime was saved, and somewhere on the burning bridge of a dead flagship, a human captain collapsed beside the body of his enemy, finally allowing himself to rest. The Grand Hall was filled with more people than Taeho had ever seen. Valorians from every noble house, every military unit, every corner of the planet, had gathered to witness this moment. They stood in perfect rows, their silver skin shining under the lights, their eyes fixed on the throne where High Matriarch Su-Ra sat in full ceremonial armor. Taeho walked slowly down the center aisle, supported by Wu Jin on one side and a medical officer on the other. His wounds from the battle were not fully healed. He should have been in bed for another week at least. But when the matriarch summoned you, you came. The crowd parted before him. Some looked at him with curiosity, others with respect. A few still showed contempt, but most simply stared, trying to understand this strange creature who had done the impossible. Princess Yuna stood beside her mother's throne. When she saw Taeho, her composure cracked, tears formed in her eyes. She had not seen him since the battle, had spent days not knowing if he was alive or dead. Now he was here, walking toward her, and she wanted nothing more than to run to him. But protocol demanded she remain still. So she stood, and waited, and watched the man she loved approach. Taeho reached the proper distance from the throne and stopped. He tried to bow, but his injuries made it difficult. The matriarch raised her hand. "Do not bow," she said. "You have earned the right to stand before me as an equal." A murmur ran through the crowd. For a matriarch to acknowledge someone as an equal was almost unheard of. For her to do so for an alien, a human, was unprecedented. Sura stood and descended from her throne. She walked down the steps until she stood directly in front of Taeho. Up close, he could see the lines on her face, the weight of her years and responsibilities. But he also saw something he had not seen before: warmth. "Captain Kang Taeho of Earth," she announced, her voice carrying through the silent hall. "You came to our world as a stranger. You were mocked and dismissed. Yet when danger came, you did not flee. When your ship was damaged, you did not surrender. When faced with overwhelming odds, you did not hesitate." She turned to address the assembled crowd. "This human has saved our world. Not once, but twice. First, when he protected the medical frigate and the refugees aboard it, including my own daughter. And again, when he killed the Krath warlord and shattered the enemy alliance." Sura turned back to Taeho. "Our laws say that such service must be rewarded. Name what you desire, Captain. Land? Wealth? A seat among our noble houses? Whatever you ask, it will be granted." Taeho was quiet for a moment. He could feel the eyes of thousands upon him. He could see Yuna at the edge of his vision, waiting to hear what he would say. "Matriarch," he said finally. "I didn't fight for rewards. I didn't save those people because I wanted something in return. I did it because it was right, because innocent lives were at stake, and I had the power to help." Another murmur through the crowd. General Dayrock, standing with his officers, looked at Taeho with open amazement. In all his years, he had never heard someone refuse a matriarch's reward. Sura studied Taeho's face. "You truly mean that?" "I do." "Then let me ask you something else." Her voice softened slightly. "My daughter has told me about the time you spent together during your recovery. She has told me about your conversations, your ideas, your view of the universe." The matriarch glanced at Yuna. "She has told me how she feels about you." Taeho's heart beat faster. He had not expected this. "My daughter is precious to me," Sura continued. "She is the heir to everything I have built, everything our ancestors fought for over thousands of years. I have always known that one day she would choose a partner. I prepared myself to approve of a Valorian lord, some noble warrior from an ancient house. I God by ye." She looked back at Taeho. "I never expected her to choose a human." The hall was completely silent. Everyone understood what was happening. The fate of the Valorian succession hung on what came next. Princess Yuna could stay silent no longer. She stepped forward, breaking protocol, and stood beside Taeho. She took his hand in hers and faced her mother. "I know this is unexpected," Yuna said. "I know he is not what you planned for me. But in my entire life, I have never met anyone who makes me feel the way he does. He sees me, Mother, not the princess, not the heir, but me. He treats me as a person, not a prize." She squeezed Taeho's hand. "I want to be with him, not because of what he has done, but because of who he is. I choose him. The crowd erupted in whispers. Some were scandalized. Others seemed moved by the princess's words. General Dayrock stepped forward, his face troubled. "Matriarch, with respect, this cannot be allowed. No human is worthy of the royal bloodline. He is brave, yes, but he is still just a—" Sura raised her hand, and the general fell silent. The matriarch looked at her daughter, at the tears streaming down Yuna's face, at the fierce love in her eyes. Then she looked at Taeho, at the scars he bore, at the quiet strength in his posture despite his wounds. She remembered the question she had asked him in the medical room days ago. "Why did you risk your life for people who showed you nothing but contempt, because they needed help?" Such simple words, such a simple truth. And yet, in those words, Sura had heard something she had not heard in centuries of rule, something pure. She made her decision. Sura reached out and placed her hand on Taeho's shoulder. This was the highest honor a matriarch could bestow. a gesture of acceptance and blessing. "I have ruled this dominion for 300 years," she said, her voice clear and strong. "I have seen countless warriors, nobles, and princes. Some were strong. Some were clever. Some were ambitious." She paused. "But I have never met anyone braver than this man standing before me." She looked at Yuna, then back at Taeho. "I made a promise to myself long ago. I said that I would only marry my daughter to someone as brave as my greatest warriors. To someone who would protect her, cherish her, and stand beside her through whatever challenges came." Su-Ra smiled. And for the first time, Taeho saw the mother behind the matriarch. "Captain Kang Taeho, you have exceeded every expectation. You have proven yourself worthy not just to me, but to all of Valoria." She raised her voice, so everyone could hear. "I will only marry my daughter to someone as brave as you. And since there is no one braver, the choice is clear." She stepped back and addressed the crowd. "If my daughter chooses this man, she has my blessing. And anyone who objects will answer to me." The silence stretched for a long moment. Then General Dayrock stepped forward again. But this time, he did not protest. Instead, he drew his ceremonial blade and held it high. "For the captain," he said. "For the hero of Nara Prime." One by one, the other military officers drew their blades and raised them. Then the nobles. Then the common people, who had gathered to watch, the hall filled with the sound of thousands of voices shouting in unison, "For the hero of Nara Prime." Yuna threw her arms around Taeho, no longer caring about protocol or dignity. He held her close, his face buried in her silver hair. "I love you," she whispered. "I love you too," he replied. Later, after the ceremony was over and the crowds had departed, Taeho and Yuna stood together on the observation deck of the royal palace. Below them, the city was celebrating, lights and music filling the night. Above them, the stars stretched out forever. Somewhere among those stars was Earth, a small blue dot that Taeho had once called home. He would return there someday, to show Yuna where he came from, to let her meet his mother. But for now, this was where he belonged. "What happens now?" he asked. Yuna looked up at him with a smile. "Now, we build something new. A bridge between our peoples. A future that neither of us could have imagined." She leaned against him, and he wrapped his arm around her. "The galaxy is watching," she said. "They're wondering what humans will do next." Taeho smiled. "I guess we'll just have to show them." Together, they watched the stars. And somewhere out there, among all those distant lights, humanity's story was just beginning.